Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us on the active violence training. This training is being presented by the Fairfax County Communities of Trust Committee. And this committee was established in 2014 to build positive relationships between law enforcement and the communities that they serve. During the year, we provide educational webinars, and this is one that we think is needed right now since there are so many active shooters, and we need to know exactly what it is that we can do if we're ever caught in a situation like this. So tonight we have none other than one of our police officers, Master Police Officer Sabrina Ruck. She's been a member with the Fairfax County Police Department since 1999, where she was assigned to the Mason District. And she later became a basic recruit instructor at the Fairfax County Criminal Justice Academy. She is currently assigned to the Sully District as the Crime Prevention Officer. MPO Ruck is a native of Fairfax County. She is married to Captain Brian Ruck, who is stationed at the Mount Vernon Station. They have 2 children. For some of you who may have questions, you can put them in the chat, and we will try to answer as many questions as possible. I'm looking at the chat and it says someone cannot see me, so I'm not sure what that is about. If you continue having that problem, just put a message back in the chat. But again, if you have any questions, put them over in the chat and we will ask them either at the end of the session, or you would ask, we will stop doing a period in the presentation where we can ask the question, okay? So with that being said, I am going to turn it over to our instructor for the evening, Sabrina Ruck.
Okay, thank you very much, Shirley. Again, technology, you think we'd be better at this by now, and this for over a year, but again, like anything, technology, is still a learning curve. So hopefully, because this is set up as a webinar, I cannot see the attendees. Everybody should be able to see my screen right now. You should see the PowerPoint, Fairfax County Police Active Violence Awareness. If somebody, and Shirley, if you can just check the chat, just to make
sure we can see it.
Okay, perfect. We'll get going. So again, I appreciate Shirley wanting to do this presentation. Right before COVID, obviously in 2020, I didn't get one request for this presentation, as you can imagine, because everybody was at home. A lot of things were closed, and it just wasn't on people's minds, obviously, at the time. We had a lot of other things going on, but now, we're kind of back out. And if you've been watching the news, it's, unfortunate that we are seeing these again. So it's always good to bring back this awareness. So for this presentation, what I want really for you all to get out of this and think about, it's going to be very individualized. And what I mean is we're all very different. We've all had very different experiences. And with that, a lot of this is just that mental preparation. It's always the what if, thinking things before they happen, having a plan. And that is going to be the best way for you to handle a situation. So when I hear about these incidents on the news, again, just kind of knowing a lot of times just what the news is putting out, not knowing every single detail, I try to put myself in that situation. What if that was me at that Walmart? What would I do? And kind of run through that and think of options. And so during this presentation, I'm going to give you those options. But we don't want you to, think about it if, God forbid, you're all of a sudden in that situation. This is the first time you're thinking of your options. Go back to the days when you're in grade school and how many times you practice for a fire drill. You kind of know what to do for a fire drill. So hopefully with practice and training, if there was a real fire, you wouldn't have that sense of panic because you're like, we've done this, we know our evacuation route, we know where we're supposed to go, it's familiar to you. So that's kind of what I want this to be, is to have some familiarity, if you were ever in some type of incident. And please definitely feel free to ask questions. I am going to show some videos. The first, well, I'll wait. Before I get to that video, I'll kind of give the disclaimer. So why are we here? So unfortunately, we're here because of how many incidents we have had. We felt as an agency that, we practice as law enforcement on how we respond to an incident, but what about the community? What about civilians? They're waiting on us. So what can we do for them until we arrive? This picture here is just, not many, but it's we could fill many screens, unfortunately, with all the victims of active violence. But we, again, honor these victims. We're not going to talk about who the shooters were, to give them any more type of notoriety. Our focus is to honor these victims and what we can learn from these incidents. Okay, so an active shooter incident, there's some consistent factors. A lot of these you can also go on to the FBI's website where they do keep track of statistics and different, commonalities between incidents. So they're pretty quick. But when you're in it, less than 10 minutes is going to seem like an eternity. But usually once it starts, the shooter has had some type of plan in mind. So they know the police are going to be coming and it's just a matter of time. So that's why typically they're usually over in less than 10 minutes. There will almost always be reports of more than one shooter. Of course, in a chaotic event, people are seeing and hearing different things and people are calling 911, giving a lot of different information, which is great. But typically, statistically, it's usually one shooter. But if we're getting reports that there's more than one, we're going to take that until we can confirm otherwise. Once the shooter is down and contained, the actual threat is minimal, even though it will take time to clear all the areas. So what that means, let's say you're in an office building and the shooter was located on the second floor. Again, if we feel, okay, we have the shooter, things are, the scene's a little bit more safe, I guess you could say, but it's still not completely safe until we clear everything. And that is going to take some time. So if you're, in a locked in area, shelter in place, just try to be patient. We will get to you until we can ensure that there is no more actual threat. Victims have bled out awaiting care, and I'm going to touch on that in a little bit later. And that's something that we have learned from incidents about how we need to redirect our training in order to not have that happen. So people always ask for a profile. There is no set profile of an active shooter. However, in the aftermath, people sometimes report warning signs. Aftermath, people sometimes report warning signs about the attacker. So with that, I don't think anybody would say, gosh, my neighbor or family member or coworker is going to be the next active shooter. But sometimes you might just start noticing things that just seem abnormal. And then when you kind of put all those things together, those could be considered some warning signs. For example, if maybe, one of your coworkers, is just a big change in personality, maybe they're having some big life event. It could be, and it's usually something bad that's happened. Maybe they're going through a divorce, a custody dispute, maybe something at work. Maybe they know they're going to get fired. There's usually sometimes it can be some life event that's happening, and then you might start noticing a change in their behavior. Does somebody all of a sudden have a very big interest in weapons and they never really did? Are they talking about buying a gun or getting a gun and they just have never had any interest in guns before? And again, this is just kind of going with a bunch of other signs of behavior you're seeing. Have they made statements, that are concerning, about, hurting people, harming people, talking about past active shooter events and talking about the people involved in those. It could be, a lot of different things, but when it's kind of all put together, some warning signs. So we would like people to report those so we can ensure that person can get the help we need. We work very closely with our mental health services. And of course, that is definitely a route we always like to go with. If we believe it's, mental health issue, then, let's see what we can do to get them the services that they need. So this first video here, Run, Hide, Fight. So it's about 7 to 8 minutes long, and it's going to give you the options of what you could do in an active shooter situation. It is actors playing in the video, although it can raise some emotions as it seems very, very real. So I will show the video and then I will go more in depth with the different options.
It may feel like just another day at the office, but occasionally, life feels more like an action movie than reality. The authorities are working hard to protect you and to protect our public spaces. But sometimes bad people do bad things. Their motivations are different. The warning signs may vary, but the devastating effects are the same. And unfortunately, you need to be prepared for the worst. If you were ever to find yourself in the middle of an active shooter event, your survival may depend on whether or not you have a plan. The plan doesn't have to be complicated. There are 3 things you could do that make a difference. Run, hide, fight. First and foremost, if you can get out, do. Always try and escape or evacuate, even when others insist on staying. Encourage others to leave with you, but don't let them slow you down with indecision. Remember what's important, you, not your stuff. Leave your belongings behind and try to find a way to get out safely. Trying to get yourself out of harm's way needs to be your #1 priority. Once you are out of the line of fire, try to prevent others from walking into the danger zone and call 911. If you can't get out safely, you need to find a place to hide. Act quickly and quietly. Try to secure your hiding place the best you can. Turn out lights, and if possible, remember to lock doors. Silence your ringer and vibration mode on your cell phone. And if you can't find a safe room or closet, try to conceal yourself behind large objects that may protect you. Do your best to remain quiet and calm. As a last resort, if your life is at risk, whether you are alone or working together as a group, fight. Act with aggression. Improvise weapons. Disarm him. And commit to taking the shooter down, no matter what. Try to be aware of your environment. Always have an exit plan. Know that in an incident like this, victims are generally chosen randomly. The event is unpredictable and may evolve quickly. The first responders on the scene are not there to evacuate or tend to the injured. They are well trained and are there to stop the shooter. Your actions can make a difference for your safety and survival. Be aware and be prepared. And if you find yourself facing an active shooter, there are 3 key things you need to remember to survive. Run, hide, fight.
Back to my slide. Okay, then we're gonna have another video in just a second. But let me go over those options. And you can find a lot of different versions of that video online if you type in the run, hide, fight, if you just kind of want to see different ways that they're explaining it. So those are the options. So run, evacuate, get out of there as fast as you can. I think that would be everybody's option of choice. Again, like it said in the video, these events are very unpredictable and they happen very quickly. So you may always think, okay, evacuation running is gonna be my plan, but maybe you're just not at that point in time in an area to do that. So that's why it's good to think about all 3 of them. When you go into a place, be aware of your surroundings. Situational awareness should be happening all the time. And I'll talk a little bit more in the next few slides of that. Is even when you're just going out for a walk in your neighborhood, it's not, necessarily you might be thinking an active shooter is going to come up, but it's just general safety awareness about anything, and just knowing what's going on around you, sounds, you don't have to look paranoid when you're out walking, but just be aware. What I like to tell people with these events, you see a lot of times that, the most recent ones, the grocery store one, that happened in Colorado. I'm sure we all have the same grocery stores we go to, but think about it. Next time you're there, what would be your best exit routes? If you are in the back of the store, is there a way to get out? Is there an emergency exit that maybe you've never thought of before, but it's there? Maybe it's, there's a door in the back that's commonly used for deliveries, but you know what? In a situation like that, you use any door, window, whatever you need to do to get out, because maybe you don't want to run to the front of the store, because that's where whatever you need to do to get out, because maybe you don't want to run to the front of the store, because that's where you're hearing what's going on. So, you go to a restaurant, just kind of, again, observe, if I had to get out of here quickly, what is the best way? And sometimes it's not always going to be the way that you entered. The exit, like they say on the airplanes all the time, the closest exit might be behind you, not in front of you. So it's always kind of good to notice those things. I do that when I go out. If there is an emergency, I might be close to an exit, but if I haven't taken the time to find it in a critical situation where my adrenaline's going up, I'm probably just going to think back to, well, this is how I came in. And again, that may not be the best option. So situational awareness is to your environment is very important, very, very important. I can't stress that enough. The next option, to hide. So let's say you do have to hide. Again, it's so dependent on where we are at that time. In the video, they showed the office building, the woman with the photocopier, where she was in there. She, didn't think it was safe for her to try to escape. So she used, what she could. She turned off the lights, she locked the door, she, put that in front of the copier in front of the door, which was great. If you are in a situation like that, you still can text 911, which I would advise. I would say, I'm in a lockdown, I'm in my office building, provide the address, provide where you are so we know you're there, if how many people are with you, if anybody's injured, and then we will continue that communication with you. And then until we get there. And then the last option is fight. That's a hard one. And again, that's, something I don't think anybody ever is quite ready to do, but depending on the situation, there's people that will get to that point and will just say, you know what, it's not going to be my day. I don't really have the option to run, evacuate based on my location right now. There's really nowhere place to hide. So I'm just going to go in and all out. And a lot of times what I like to think of sort of as an example to that is 9/11. When the plane that went down in Pennsylvania, the information they received, what was happening with the other planes is they made a decision. They kind of knew at that point, they're in an airplane. They can't evacuate. They can't hide. So their option at that point was, maybe there was a chance, if they fought, they could save themselves, but importantly, they knew they would save a lot of other people. So again, that's just a hard thing to come to. But as in the video, if you decide to fight, you have to be, again, a lot of aggression, 100% committed in doing that. This next video here is an actual video. It is not actors. Somebody does get shot in this video. It is the shooter, you will see. This video I like to show in the sense that, aside from the shooter, which is tragic, he actually ended up taking his own life in the video, but everybody else was uninjured. But it shows how quickly things can change in just a very common setting. This is a school board meeting in Florida that, obviously we have tons of meetings just like that, of all different kinds of things. And a man came in and he was very upset about a tax that the school board was going to have, and then also about his wife's employment. And you'll kind of see he's doing some very odd things, but I don't think the members of the board were really taking him seriously. And then that's kind of how things went on from there. So I'll show the video and then I will make some points about it. Oh, I'm sorry.
The beginning of this story seems tragically familiar. An angry man interrupted a school board meeting in Panama City, Florida today, blamed them for firing his wife, and then leveled a handgun. He said he planned to die and apparently had every intent to kill. What you're about to see now is graphic, but what happened in the end was nothing short of astonishing.
Business as usual stopped when 56-year-old Clay Duke stepped to the front of the room and began spray painting a wall with an ominous red symbol seen in the movie V for Vendetta.
The facial expressions on the board members kind of hinted that something odd was happening, and then I saw the gun.
Nadine Yanis, a reporter for local station WMBB, hit the floor as Duke ordered the women and children from the room. Moments later, board member Ginger Littleton sneaks behind Duke and tries to knock the gun from his hand with her purse.
If he wanted to kill her at that moment, he could have, and he didn't.
Duke lets her go, and tension builds as he rants at the male board members over a sales tax increase, while Superintendent Bill Husfeld tries to calm him.
Just listen to me for a minute. I don't want anybody to get hurt, and I've got a feeling that what you want is the cops come in and kill you because you're mad, because you said you're going to die today. But why? This isn't worth it. This is a problem. Please don't. Please don't. Please.
Duke fires wildly. 4 shots, all of them missed. He then crumples to the floor, shot from the back of the room by Chief of Security Mike Jones, a former detective. As he lay wounded, police say Duke then used a remaining bullet to take his own life.
Police were alerted immediately. They were there within minutes, and we had both the Bay County Sheriff's Office and the Panama City Police Department there working the scene.
Here's another look at the moment of horror.
But why? This isn't worth it. This is a problem. Please don't. Please don't. Please. I'm going to kill you. Don't you understand?
We have reports that Mike Jones, the officer in the back of the room, was taken to the hospital for chest pains, but is okay. A lot of heroes in that room. Be sure to watch Good Morning America tomorrow morning for the latest on the story.
Okay, that video, that I'm sure made some people jump. It still makes me, every time I watch, it's very shocking to see something, again, that's so common in our day-to-day turn so bad. So with that video, you know, when he comes in, he's angry, and you know, he's spraying the V for Vendetta on the wall, which is odd, I would say. So at that point, if somebody comes in to a place, whether it's a meeting, it's, you know, a conference room, it's your house of worship, you know, something, and starts acting, I would say, disorderly, you know, showing some signs that just seem very odd, I would get out of there. I wouldn't wait. I wouldn't wait to see what's going to happen next. It said in the video that he ordered, you know, the women and children out. Okay, but they probably should have left, and I probably would have left a little quicker. But again, I'm kind of Monday morning quarterback. But again, that's a sign to leave. And then, so once the audience is out, you still have the board members there. And just kind of, I just don't think they're taking him seriously. He's holding a gun. He's telling them, you know, he's threatening them with the gun. And that's when I think too, sometimes as people, we just want to think, he's not going to really do this. Nobody would do that because none of us would do that, you know? And they're just trying to think, well, no, it's going to get better. You know, something's going to change. But if somebody's threatening you like that or making statements, even if they're not holding a weapon, I take them on it. You know, I'm not going to wait to see what's going to happen next, because things didn't go the way that I think the board thought they could handle it. And then you have Ginger Littleton, who decides to come back and try to hit the gun with her purse. You know what? I give her credit. She was trying to do something. So at that moment, watching that video, I've watched it so many times, even though things are happening quickly, I think those board members, when he had turned to deal with Ginger, that would have been a great opportunity for those board members to just, you know, tackle him, jump on him at that point. He wouldn't have been expecting it. So sometimes we have to try to look for those opportunities in bad situations. Again, we have to try to remain calm and be thinking, you know, okay, what can be our next move to get out of this? Because they're in a bad situation. There's no doubt. Their backs are right there against the wall. He's right in front of them. So unfortunately, that was a missed opportunity. And then So then he redirects his attention back at them. And Bill Husfeld, I guess the chairman of the board, people have asked me, well, would you try to negotiate with him? What would you do? Well, I think at that moment, if you were going to do that, I probably wouldn't do it in the way that he said it. Again, probably wouldn't do it in the way that he said it. Again, Monday morning quarterbacking, but he just sounded kind of annoyed and was kind of condescending towards him. So I probably wouldn't use that tactic in that manner. I would tell him whatever would help him. If he was upset about the tax, I'd say, you know what, we'll get rid of the tax. We'll hire your wife back. Do whatever you need to say to try to diffuse and de-escalate that situation at that moment. When somebody's pointing a gun at you, I will, say whatever you need to say. Thankfully, when he did start shooting, none of them were struck. The one that held up the binder, that's actually what saved them. I mean, it is truly a miracle that none of them were hit, being as close as he was to them. And I'm sure they've reflected on that many times and thought things, oh, wow, I could have done things differently. And again, I'm not here to shame them with any of their decisions. But again, it just shows how something very common and everyday can just turn very quickly. And again, going back to potential warning signs, there were some warning signs very at the beginning that something bad was going to happen. And then again, having a plan and taking some type of action. So the next slide here is a slide of what does incoming gunfire sound like. This may sound like a strange slide to put in, but oftentimes I will say people, they're not sure what gunfire is, especially automatic gunfire, because we're not used to hearing that. We shouldn't be hearing automatic gunfire, while we're out in a restaurant or in a grocery store, or just out and about. However, if you are out and you hear something like this, again, as humans in a safe area that we live in, we're going to downplay it. We're going to think, oh, maybe it's fireworks, or we're going to come up with something because we don't want to think the worst. We don't want to think, oh my gosh, somebody is shooting, because it's scary and you just want to try to talk yourself out of that. But I think if we listen to the sound and we were somewhere and happen to hear something like this, I don't want you to just automatically discount it as, oh, it could be fireworks, or, give it something else. So this is actually body cam footage from the Las Vegas shooting that happened several years ago. And you'll hear it's a very distinct how you hear the sounds of the gunshots and there's kind of this pause in between.
Hey, you guys, get down! Go that way! Get out of here! There's gunshots coming from over there! Go that way! Go that way! There's gunshots right here! That's fireworks! Gunshots! I can hit my head. Let's go that way, go that way, go that way. Hey, they're shooting right at us, guys. Everybody stay down. Stay down. Where's it at? North of the Manly base.
Okay, I don't know if some of you might have caught that because I accidentally hit pause, is you actually hear somebody out of sight of the camera that said, that's not gunfire, that's fireworks. I don't know if that was another officer that was nearby. I don't know who it was, but again, people are just trying to think, now there's got to be some other reason, because we don't want to think the worst thing is happening to us at that moment. So you see the officers, best thing you can do is to take cover where they were, because they're in an open area, behind a wall, something that is preferably something that's going to stop a bullet, but at least slow it down if it has some type of barrier that you're behind. So active violence incidents, the modalities change, but the motive is always mass murder. And that's what it is, whether it is, Typically we do see somebody using a firearm to commit it, but we have seen incidents where people have used vehicles, people have used knives. So it may not always be a firearm, but again, their goal is just to indiscriminately murder people, and as many as they can before the police arrive. So same thing, if you see, a car, a truck, something that's revving its engine near a big crowd or starts driving erratically, again, that's that situational awareness, trying to be around and looking around of your surroundings all the time. So our response, Fairfax County's police response. So rapid deployment. So we are now, the first arriving officer, as you see, our officers assess the shooter's location and make entry and start seeking the threat. This all goes back to the original of Columbine and what the officers did and the SWAT team did there. If you all remember, the officers got there first. They kind of surrounded the school, held a perimeter, and waited for SWAT because they were better trained and they had better equipment. At that time, that was kind of the response nationwide of law enforcement agencies. We kind of held everything. Well, from that and then other active shooter incidents to follow, we can't do that because lives are being lost. Too much time is happening. So we just said, no, there is no waiting. If you are the first one there, guess what? You may be going in by yourself, but you need to get in there and, start seeking out the threat. So additional responding officers are going to start deploying to the location as well. And the goal is to stop the active shooting and evacuate all the viable victims as quickly as possible. Officers are trained and equipped to treat the wounded after the threat is neutralized or contained. So again, when we started doing our training, it was just the officers going in. Really, I would say Virginia Tech incident was kind of then when we had to change our training again, because what happened there was, the police got there, but then there was a kind of a long time between, I would say, viable victims who bled out before they could get proper treatment, life-saving measures from EMS, hospitals. So we thought, okay, we need to do better. We need to be able to get victims move quickly, and we need to start working better with our fire department. So we started our training, not just with the police, but now we've been including the fire department. And actually, we are doing that right now. So we're going through training again, working on response and working hand in hand with the fire department. So we train together, coordinated hostile incident response. All PD and fire department recruits receive the training, so they're ready to go right out of the academy. And it has shortened the response times and the cooperation. So even though fire department and police department, we're all public safety, sometimes we're just doing totally two different things. And sometimes when we have to work together, there's a lot of differences on how they coordinate and how we coordinate. So we have representatives from both agencies that have come up with this unified plan. And the fire department, part of their training was kind of to wait until a scene was completely cold, like meaning, there's no chance of anything, still happening when they arrive, which makes sense. They're the fire department. They're not equipped as law enforcement. However, through our agreement with them, they're going through training and they will enter scenes that are still considered warm, meaning, maybe the building hasn't been completely cleared, but it's contained. And that way we can start evacuating victims, people that need treatment, and get them out quickly. They will come in escorted by police officers. They have been issued ballistic vests and all the equipment they need to keep themselves safe in order to get people out. And so when we've done these trainings, it's amazing to see, the difference from when we weren't working so closely together with our fire department. And this is now becoming more nationwide. And also officers have received a lot more training. When we started off, when I started off in the police academy in 1999, we just did basic safety, first aid training. We have CPR, of course, but then just, basic care of wounds, because again, we just called the fire department if we had something major. Well, same thing again. we've learned from these incidents is, some people have some severe wounds, and if officers can start carrying equipment on them, like tourniquets, we can help save lives, and different packing if somebody has a wound. And the fire department has trained us all on that. So those have all been really good things. And I think what's been really good out of that training is officers have used their tourniquets, I won't say quite often, but often, not even so much in an active shooter incident, but from car accidents. A lot of times we are first on the scene before the fire department. And again, it was kind of that wait time, like, all right, fire department, get here. I have somebody who's, badly injured. But now we have some of that equipment. So we can start doing aid to these people with severe injuries. And then doing aid to these people with severe injuries. And then as soon as the fire department gets there, then they can take over. So that's been something really good that both agencies have been doing and improving constantly. So I mentioned at the beginning situational awareness. And again, that just doesn't come just to active shooter incidents. This is to just everyday life. You should be attention. So the military uses kind of different color codes. So we've kind of used those to kind of explain the additional types of situational awareness. So condition white is the bottom one, tuned out. That means you are completely unaware of your surroundings. You shouldn't really ever be in condition white. Maybe you're at home, in your house, wherever, everything's locked up, you're watching a movie, you feel like, okay, I can kind of tune out of what's going on. But, beyond that, as soon as you step out, you need to start having some type of level of awareness. So that's where I kind of like the yellow, the relaxed awareness. So you're paying attention, but enjoying life, So that doesn't mean, again, walking around paranoid and crouching and, moving your head all weird, looking around every corner, tactily, but just knowing what's going on. And that just means like you're going out for a walk and, you notice people that are around you, sounds, things of that nature. So I kind of use the example too of your driving. So today was a gorgeous day. Fortunately, I was inside most of it. But on days like this, people love, when they're driving, windows are open, maybe you have a good song on and you're paying attention, you're enjoying life. It's a great day. So let's say you're doing that. You're driving down 66. Well, maybe now it's not such a great day. But so you're on 66, you're driving, traffic's flowing. And then all of a sudden you see a whole bunch of brake lights coming up ahead. So now it's like, let's move into that orange, focused awareness, carefully observing a potential danger. So what do we typically do if we start seeing something that needs our attention more with driving? Usually we just turn off the radio or any sound that helps us focus. So you see a bunch of brake lights ahead. So you're like, oh, I need to focus more. And you naturally do that. You turn down the radio, you're more aware of what's going on around you. Then maybe you start to see emergency lights. So you're like, oh, great, what's going on? And then maybe something happens right in front of you, high alerts. There's a confirmed threat, you need to take action. So let's say, something, another car just slammed on their brakes in front of you. So you had to quick respond to that so you wouldn't crash into them. So you kind of move to that red zone. And then the final one, the comatose, is you're in shock, you're unable to function. You can't do any decisions. You can't make, your decision making has just gone way down as to what to do because you're so overwhelmed by what's happening around you. So to put that in context with an active shooter, again, that focused awareness. Let's say maybe, you're hearing these sounds, you're like, okay, no, this can't be, I possibly could never be in a location where there's an active shooter happening, but I'm hearing it. So then, maybe something's like somebody's yelling, he has a gun, or you feel that's it. Then that's when you make your decision that run, hide, fight. I need to do something. I'm now in high alert. Let's say, going back to the video, the woman who was in the break room, the last one where they decided to fight the guy when he came through the door. She was very upset. She was crying. She was almost kind of getting down in that fetal position. And that's going to happen to some people because they are so frightened and scared and just overwhelmed as what's happening that they kind of are just in shock and unable to function. Not saying if that happens, you have to try to bring yourself out of that. You have to then try to get back into the high alert so you can start making some good decisions for your safety of what to do. You know, and the best way to do that is through this mental preparation. Again, going through some of these scenarios, thinking them through. What am I going to do? Because you don't want to just go down in the fetal position. You need to do something. You need to run, you need to hide, you need to fight. So if you get to that spot where you are just completely overwhelmed, please deep breaths, you know, think back to the training, think back of what you know, your knowledge, and start making some decisions. So here in these videos, you're going to see completely different. You're going to see first, I'm going to show you condition white. At least it's a kind of a funny video. So, and hopefully none of you have fallen for this before.
You're watching America This Morning, America's #1 early morning news.
Get ready to feel a little guilty for laughing on this one. Here is our latest and greatest evidence that no one should attempt to walk and text at the same time.
Now, this girl right here, she's walking, she's texting, and goes whoop straight into the fountain.
Oh.
It all went down recently at a mall in Pennsylvania.
The best part might just be her reaction. Just get up and walk away and hope no one saw it. Don't worry, no one did see it, except thankfully for the surveillance camera.
And there's an iPhone app that does let you see in front of you through your camera as you text. So if you're really gonna walk and text, try that app.
We've all had some mishap happen on texting, haven't we?
This is true.
Okay, I'm sure nobody's done that, but I'm sure you have. I'm sure whether it's been you or you've been somewhere and somebody's on their phone, looking at their phone or texting or, you know, doing whatever, they bumped into you. And so that's condition what you were totally unaware of what's going on around you. And so in that video, obviously that girl, I mean, she completely missed a fountain and fell into it. But then if you happen to notice the people coming out of the store, they didn't even do anything. They didn't even look like they reacted. Like, you just saw somebody fall in a water fountain. Like, so I don't even know if they noticed. They might have been in condition white too. So you just really, you know, don't get, you know, especially with our phones, that's the worst thing. You know, we get so focused on our phones nowadays that we have no idea what's going on around us. So we need to, you know, be aware of that and be paying attention. Now, in the second video is very different. It's the finish line of the Boston Marathon where they had the bombing. And again, obviously nobody was expecting, you know, this was going to happen. You think, you know, here are these runners. They just ran a marathon. They're exhausted. They're so excited to cross the finish line. Family members there and friends cheering them on. And then these explosions happen. Of course, again, everybody's going to take that moment going, what just happened? You know, again, your brain is trying to process, you know, what is going on around me. But if you notice, and I can play it a couple times, is the officers standing there. They immediately put their hand on their guns. And I think it was just, again, just part of training that the explosion happened. They're not even quite sure what's happening at the moment, but they know it's something bad. And they just automatically kind of put their hand down on their gun and they start looking around. Just because, again, reverting back to training. Something bad just happened. I need to get prepared. See, sometimes this video gives me problems. This one can be. Oh, wrong way. Sorry, let's start at the beginning. I'll try it again. I missed the beginning. There we go. So let me play that again, because it's real quick. So it's in the bottom left-hand corner. Look at those officers that were standing there. you saw, they were first casually just standing there, just like all the other spectators, enjoying. So they're just working an off-duty assignment, watching all the runners come through, thinking, oh, this is great, and then all of a sudden, so quickly, something terrible happens, and they have to get ready. They have to switch gears to go from that casual mode to now, what's going on? I need to be in that high alert mode. So to be able to switch into that. So the OODA loop, and some of you may be familiar with this, who are in the military, and we're constantly doing this. And it's just kind of just putting a name to it about decision making. So the OODA loop is observe, orient, decide, and act. And we're constantly doing that. And I'll put this in two different contexts. So something very, benign, and something is, let's say, getting a cup of coffee. Okay. I like using the Starbucks mobile app. I think that's the greatest thing. And so let's say, I'm working, I'm out driving, and first I have to orient I'm observing, okay, where am I at? Okay, I want to go to Starbucks. Let me orient. I can use that mobile app. So let me see which location is going to be the closest. Then I have to decide, what I want, big decision, and then act. Well, obviously act is then I just want to go and get my cup of coffee. But what if something disrupts my OODA loop? Then I have to kind of start that whole process again. So let's say I'm driving and then I pull up on a disabled motorist. It's like, okay, I got to stop now. So that kind of just disrupted for that moment my plan. Basically, what I was going to do, I was going to go get coffee. Well, now that's not going to happen. So now to put it back into a more serious example. Put it back into a more serious example is going back to that school board shooting. So if there's an opportunity to disrupt the event, we want to take that opportunity. So going back to the board member sitting there in that moment, because at that point, the suspect, his plan was to shoot the school board members. I truly believe he came in there and that's what he was going to do. And a lot of times with active shooters, their plan is to kill as many people as they can. And beyond that, they haven't thought anything else. So if there's some way to disrupt that plan, we need to take some type of action if possible. So for the school board, that moment was when Ginger Littleton smacked the gun with the purse. He definitely was not expecting that. That was not part of the plan when he went in there that evening. So she disrupted his OODA loop. And then he had to quickly decide or observe and orient again and decide what he was going to do. So anytime, there can be that disruption. And sometimes you may not even know you're disrupting it from the beginning. If you have a, suspicious person that's lurking outside and, maybe you need to call that in. There's a lot of different ways. So anyway, and sometimes it's our own OODA loop, maybe we have a decision, we're hiding in a location, but then circumstances have changed and now we might have the opportunity to run, to evacuate. So constantly have to be evaluating your situation at the moment and deciding on what you can do and taking action. Deer in headlights. Okay, so why does our friend react this way to an approaching car? Because they're just really not that smart. Okay, and they don't have the brains like we do, where we can make decisions. But we don't want to look like that deer in headlights because we've never thought about this before. We've never thought about ever being involved in one of these incidents, and we just don't want to freeze. We want to do something. So obviously a deer does not know, what this big object coming at them with headlights on, this vehicle, they're out in the woods, they end up on the road and they're kind of like, this is unfamiliar. What is this? There's a car coming. I don't know what to do. So I'll just stand here. But as us, luckily, we're a lot smarter than the deer and we can come up with a plan. We can think things through when it's something we're not expecting. But I will say, I will give credits to animals though. When they sense danger, what do they typically do? They run. They run from danger a lot of times, especially if it's like a predator or something. But as human beings, a lot of times we just kind of try to justify the behavior. We're like, well, I'm sure there's a reason for this. And, sometimes we'll talk ourselves out of something that could be, something bad, but we kind of do it anyway because nothing bad's ever happened in that time. So just, we talk ourselves out of it. So just know to always have a plan, think about things. I know I keep repeating myself, but I can't emphasize that enough going forward. So Stop the Bleed. This is a campaign that's happened nationwide. It's a great program. INOVA is very big in this campaign. They sponsor a lot of trainings. I highly, highly recommend everybody take the Stop the Bleed training. It goes into the use, probably the biggest thing is the use of tourniquets. It goes beyond basic first aid, and it's something that we have recommended to a lot of businesses, schools, colleges, universities. Hey, in addition to a first aid kit, the AED that you see on the walls, maybe we need to have some type of Stop the Bleed that has tourniquets involved. So, if there is somebody that's hurt, if there's another person there to help them before law enforcement or the fire department arrive, that's a wonderful thing. So here's a quick video on that program.
You've probably seen these boxes on our set. They are bleeding control kits.
And they're part of a new White House initiative. Soon, you'll be seeing them on the walls of public spaces.
Airports, shopping malls, even your place of business. Open the box and you will find what you need to stave off a bleeding wound
and give the victim time for help to arrive.
These are items that you should also have in your home and car.
The kit comes with gauze, scissors, and a tourniquet,
as well as gloves to protect you and the patient.
Often holding pressure firmly against a wound or wrapping it tightly will stop the bleeding.
But in more severe cases, a tourniquet may be required.
It should be slipped on the limb and fastened above the bleeding wound. Then use a plastic rod to tighten. Once applied, tourniquet removed by medical personnel only.
Make sure you call 911 first. For more information and instructional videos, please visit these websites.
You can save a life by learning how to stop the bleed.
CBS cares.
Okay, well, that is the presentation. I'm happy to take questions.
There are some questions.
Yes. So.
In the chat.
Okay.
One said, do you have any recordings of single non-automatic gunshots? Any tips on distinguishing them from fireworks?
It's hard. That's something we consider putting in a video. The automatic gunfire, we definitely wanted to put in because it's so distinctive. I just don't want, my biggest thing with hearing what they think is gunshots or loud noises. And if you hear sounds, I suggest calling the police, let us come out. Especially if we start getting multiple calls on something, that, usually says something more. But I've had people swear, oh, that's, fireworks and it's not, or the opposite, it was, so I think it's always just best to call us and let us come and check it out.
Okay. Another question from Andrew. How do you know which direction gunfire is coming from? Like if you are in a large warehouse and need to know which way to run.
That is hard. And again, a lot of these, unfortunately, I can't give very black and white answers. And I know that's very frustrating because even as officers, we have a lot of times the same questions. It is hard. I did speak to somebody, if anybody recalls the Navy Yard shooting that happened several years ago, huge facility. And there was a gentleman there who was there when it happened, and he shared his story with me. And he said it was so big and it was an echoing. And again, people aren't thinking, there's not an active shooter in our building. I mean, we're the Navy Yard, and they had just had like a big meeting conference and people were putting tables back. And, sometimes when you're closing the tables, they smack together and make those loud sounds. And they thought it was that. So they really, and these are people who are trained, you know, again, for these types of things, have experience in military, and it was still hard for them to distinguish, because I think a lot of it was, there possibly can't be somebody in our building, first of all, and then, you know, trying to come up with a rational reason as to why they were hearing these sounds. And you may, depending on what level you on, what end, you may not even hear any of the sounds of what's happening. And that's when, you know, I go around and, you know, we go to businesses and houses of worship, and they ask, you know, for advice on things and having emergency plans and stuff. Communication's big. If there's some way to notify people through an alert system within the building, a PA system or something, you know, if it has that capability. But a lot of times it's hard. It's hard not to know. That's when you try to listen the best you can and then visually try to see what's happening. I will say, you know, being on the move in some way is helpful, because it is a lot harder to shoot a moving target. And I say that as a police officer. If somebody's running and you run kind of like in a zigzag pattern and they are aiming for you, it is very difficult for even very good skilled shooters to hit a moving target that's running, especially kind of in a zigzag pattern, to get away.
Okay, the other question is, I have heard a lot of sounds that could be fireworks or gunshots or backfiring cars, but I can rarely tell the direction. Should I call police anyway? Any tips on determining direction?
Yes, no, that's hard. Yes, please call us. More information you can give, the better. Any details. But yeah, it's hard. It's definitely hard to determine where it's coming from. I don't have a very easy answer for that, unfortunately, just because of acoustics in different places and so forth can kind of change.
Okay. Should we call 911 or the non-emergency number?
I think, you know, if it's something, let's say, you know, let's say you're in your backyard or something and you hear a loud sound and you're not sure, and let's say you don't hear anything after it, I think a non-emergency call of that is fine. But if you start to hear several shots, or you know, especially in a business location or somewhere open to the public, where you definitely shouldn't be hearing sounds, then I think a 911 call. But again, if you call 911, then I think a 911 call. But again, if you call 911, no harm, no foul. You know, if they deem it a non-emergency call, you call.
Okay, we have one over here on the questions and answers. If you can't hide, is it a good idea to play dead?
That's a good question. You know, again, it's so hard for me to give clear-cut answers. I think, you know, that's not, I think everybody's situation is going to be different. And in the moment, you're just going to have to make the decision. But I think that if you're thinking of that already and having some type of options and plans, I think that's a great one to even consider, you know, if it came down to it. But like I said, if somebody's nearby and they're shooting, you know, for me, and if they're nearby and I have no place to hide, I'm probably just going to still try to keep running, you know, because definitely if I am crouched down somewhere open and there's a good chance they're going to come shoot me, I might take my chances and start running and hope for the best and pray for the best that maybe I will still be able to escape. So, you know, again, with everybody's experiences in the situation, you know, we might all answer that differently.
Okay, here's a great one. What do you do when on public transportation, airplane, buses, or metro?
Wow, that's a good one. So you're moving. So again, you know, depending on what's happening, you know, somebody just gets up, you know, obviously alert the driver, you know, if you're able to, and get them, if they can, to stop the bus like immediately in that situation and get off as fast as you can. Again, escape, evacuate. Same thing with metro. You know, that's a hard one. You're stuck kind of in a big box, so to speak, until I know they have emergency buttons and so forth to alert. But, you know, again, there's just not always going to be, you know, the best scenarios we would like to be in. But again, if you pay attention, that situational awareness, especially if it's just, look at the people, that the passengers, is somebody acting funny, somebody acting weird, or they, just take notice. You don't have to be weird and creepy and stare everybody up and down. But, I'll tell you what, when I'm on an airplane after 9/11, if somebody's in the bathroom for a long time, I'm like, what are they doing? Because I can't help it, after, things, because you're up in an airplane. What can you do? You can't escape. So I think of my plan, because I'm going, okay, if this is the day, and, obviously we can't have weapons on an airplane, but I have some quote unquote weapons. I have my car keys. I have a pen. If somebody starts threatening people with a weapon, well, you know what? I'm going to take some type of action at that point. Because for me personally, that's just what I'm going to do. But again, I can't speak for everybody else. But just based on my training and experience, that's just the option I would take. Is, a situation like that where you're kind of in that closed area.
Let's see. Can you text 911 if you're hiding and need to be quiet? Will that go to local 911 operators?
Yes, so that's great. So I would definitely advise texting 911, and of course you can silence it so you don't hear the notifications of the text back and forth. And yes, it will go. I know in Virginia, everywhere in the state has that capability with the 911 system, so it'll just ping off. If you're in Fairfax County, it's going to go right to Fairfax County in order to text.
Okay. Any tips if you are in traffic stopped at a light with cars in front, back, and on the side of you, and you see someone shooting people in cars?
You guys are gonna be some tough ones.
I tell you.
It's not easy. Depending again on where you're at and what's happening is it a situation where this person was in a car and they got out and they just started firing? Is there a way to get your car out of there? Maybe you need to get out of your car and just start running, depending on where it's at. I will say engine blocks of cars are good things to hide behind. They will, most cases, stop a bullet, slow down a bullet if you are behind the engine block of a car. So like, as I said, every scenario is going to have its challenges, open areas, tight areas. That's why it's always it's good. It's good to be thinking about this stuff. I like saying the what ifs, what if I'm here? What if it's that, and just start, putting options so you're thinking of them, which I think is great.
Mm-hmm. And this is just a comment. It says, I always remember a fire extinguisher discharge and give you temporary cover and is a good weapon.
Yeah, I mean, I think what we like to refer to them as environmental weapons, so like I said, like with the airplane, can't have an actual weapon, but like I said, I got keys and I got a pen. Usually there's hot coffee. I mean, if you're at that point where you've made that decision that you're going to fight or use something, I say use whatever is at your disposal, disposed to use if you decide to make that decision.
Yeah.
With that.
And I think
outside the box.
Yeah. And I think you briefly touched on about open areas like parks, playgrounds, where children are playing.
Right. That's why, especially with those, like in a park or an area of kids playing, that's when it's really important to be looking around, at your surroundings and kind of see, is there some person out there lurking around, and also too, are they carrying, a big bag, a big duffel bag, how are they dressed? Is it summertime and they're dressed, like heavy clothes? Because maybe they're expecting, they know what they're going to do and the police are coming and they're expecting a shootout. So they might be wearing some type of ballistic gear or something to protect themselves. So again, something that might not seem fitting for the environment as far as the behavior and clothing, perhaps.
Okay. Are there any other questions? If so, you can put them in the chat. But I just want to make a comment. One of the reasons why we wanted to do this presentation, because just in this month alone, there has been over 50 mass shootings. And a mass shooting is if defined as 4 or more people being killed. And that's 50 in 1 month. So we just thought it was very important to have this training. And Sabrina, I can't thank you enough for being here to present it for us.
Absolutely. And you're right, Shirley. And a lot of them, you know, you say that and that number is kind of shocking because not all of them are going to be picked up on the news. Not everyone's going to, you know, so you're like, there's no way. So I encourage people when you have time to, you know, look into some of these websites, Department of Homeland Security, the FBI, the Run, Hide, Fight, continue this. Don't let it just end here. Talk to your family, you know, share with them, you know, have those discussions, the what ifs, and have a plan. I encourage, you know, when I go to businesses, you know, with their employees, you know, we call them table talk exercises. And that's simply like, okay, this is the scenario. How would we react? What will we do? And if you just start talking it out and you start thinking of options and maybe somebody else says something, you're like, oh, I never even thought of that. That's a good idea. It will stay with you because you're training for it, even mentally training for it. So you will revert back because your brain is going to remember even in a high stress situation. Oh, wait, I've done something with this before. I've learned this and let me go back. So you hopefully don't have that complete frozen panic moment where you're just like, I don't know what to do and just crouch down and go into the fetal position. We want you to survive. And like I said, most, you know, even if you're wounded, you know, with the advancements in the medical field and having the tourniquets and doing everything and getting EMS in there quicker, you know, even if you are hit, you're not out, you know, have that will to survive, you know. I've heard some incredible stories. So, but thank you. And thank you for having this, Shirley.
This webinar is being recorded rather, and it will be posted on our YouTube channel, Communities of Trust. And if you would like the link, you can send your email address to communitiesoftrust@gmail.com. And we can send you the link. I see some of the people are putting their email addresses in the chat, but in case we log off before, please send it to communitiesoftrust@gmail.com. So if there are no additional questions, well, I tell you, the emails are coming in. And I am new to this YouTube. So normally you could copy the chats, and Peter is on here. Peter, are you still on here? If you do, copy all the chats. So
yeah.
Okay. All right. So if there are no others, oh my goodness, everybody putting their email addresses in the chat. Oh, Peter said he can't do it either because I have him in I have him on the as an attendee as opposed to a panelist.
Right.
Okay, so I'm going to just end the session, although I'm not going to actually end it because I need to make sure I get all of the information and the email addresses from everyone. But if I don't get your email address and you want a copy of the link to this presentation, which you can share with anybody, I advise you to do so. Send it to email address to communitiesoftrust@gmail.com. So again, thank you, each of you, for taking your time to join us. And thank you, Sabrina, again, for an excellent presentation as well.
And I will hang on to you for a few minutes too, in case there's any other questions or anything you need.
Okay. So I'm going to just, for anyone else, consider the session is over, but I just have to write down the email that I am getting. Okay, spell out the email. Okay, I can do that. Because it would be easier for you to just send it to me. Communities, NITIH of trust at gmail.com. Okay. There it is, our email address. And if you want to find out more about the organization, there's our website. Okay. Minor. SIJI 21. Okay, I think oh. It's IT community. Okay, I think I have everybody.
Okay. There's a lot.
Again, thank you everyone who has participated. And when I send you the link, this latter part will be deleted. So you won't hear all of this with me writing down the email addresses. So
Right.
we will clean it up for you, make it look real professional. So again, thank you everyone. Have a great evening. Be safe. And we will let you know when we're going to have another educational webinar that's being presented by our police department. Thank you. Have a good evening.